we could continue our our Liberty series and pick up where we left off. I think we talked about shelter, food, water, medicine. I don't think we got really into self-defense or anything like that. Fortifying your shelter or whatever else you guys wanted to go into that. I don't know.
What is it? Today's Thursday. Somebody help me with the math. So that's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. How many hours is that? 100 some hours? 120 some hours?
The election?
Yeah. Because if you can count in terms of hours before your event, you're actually in your evacuation plan. You're not in your and if your shit's not already fortified, you're about as good as you're gonna get.
Yeah.
So, which is like, kind of shitty and defeatist, but objective and real like a motherfucker. So, because there's already been, besides the league, there's been far more intelligent and worldly people that have already said that you're now within your evacuation window if you live someplace that is under the potential of direct threat from the direct action. That's what they're calling it. That are planned on election day.
If you're in an area where there could be rioting, it's time to take a long vacation.
So that would go along with your post, Jay, that you just made about Paris, the evacuation there.
Yeah, I mean it's somewhat related, but no, I was actually the further comment to the Paris criticism is that it's not time to leave; it's actually time to turn around and fasten bayonet. If I lived in Paris, that's all that Paris really has left. Like Paris. France has entirely fallen. The prime minister gave just an incredible statement within the last 48 hours that France has fallen. So,
Well, I'm completely ignorant of that. So if your game, Jay, giving us, I think this is good content, what you're saying. I mean, it might not seem like it to you, but
no, I think it is. I was actually going to say, shut up and let's record that.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
France on high alert after suspected terror attack leaves 3 dead 2 hours ago.
Okay, yeah. So let's look at the verbiage there and change it from suspect to 2 people were beheaded.
Not a knife attack; they were actually beheaded. Okay.
They were actually.
Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this.
Which is the third beheading this month in France.
All right, Tom. I mean, this is just going to be. Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah.
So
let's roll.
I like it.
Let me put a fresh Copenhagen in then.
Yeah, dip it. You stacked and packed. All right, let's do this. Leadheads, we are back with another episode of the Talking Lead podcast. And we're bringing this one to you just before election. And you can guess who my guests are for this episode. We've got the LOP himself, Jay, with the League of Pirates. Jay,
also,
welcome in.
This is John Poncherello.
John Poncherello?
Yeah. This is going to be my new alias, is John Poncherello.
Okay. So now you're John Poncherello. And then we've got Brian with Occam Defense Solutions.
Great to be here again.
Yeah, glad to have you. And you've got a buddy with you today. Who's joining you today?
Yeah, I've got my favorite Polish descendant in the house, Mr. James Bielczek.
What's up?
Bialzak, also known as.
Yeah, however you want to pronounce it,
We welcome you back, James. From we had a great episode not too long ago with James on. We talked about his company, FaKtory 47, and got into some other things too. So welcome in, James. We're glad to have you on this episode.
Yep, thanks for having me back.
And then also joining us, we've got a newbie, but he's not really a newbie. He's been on the show before too, but he's a newbie to this group. We've got our good buddy Jared with 212 Training Group joining us. Jared, welcome in.
What's up, guys? Greetings from Texas. Thanks for having me.
So we kind of got a good representation of the country here, because you're out in Texas, I'm in Tennessee. Brian and James are kind of the northwest, I guess you would say, areas up there representing, and then the League of Pirates is everywhere. I don't know if you want to know people to know where you're at or not, but I think you've told them on other episodes. You're down south, deep down south.
They can figure it out.
They can figure it out. Yeah.
It's not a secret.
But I thought we would just kind of sit down and just kind of reflect on the way things are right now before our last episode they had with these guys. We called it the political hurricane touches down, and we're just hours away from that, just days away as you're listening to this, Leadhead. So let's just kind of go around the table here and just take a pulse of everybody and the way that you're seeing things in your area now, as far as how your community's reacting and kind of leaning. And we'll start down south with LOP.
Well, we had candidate number 2 visiting locally, and interesting points here is that they didn't announce that he was coming to give a campaign speech.
Oh, really? A surprise speech, huh?
Well, it wasn't really a surprise. I mean, there were ways to be aware of it, but it wasn't promoted to build a crowd, and that makes me really interested to know what the marketing strategy behind that was, because if you're going to have somebody come down for a campaign, you'd think that you would want more than like 12 people to show up, but that seems to be fairly consistent with the brand messaging, because every time he shows up somewhere, there seems to be like, no one there, which is in direct contrast to when Captain Cheeto shows up and it's like a Super Bowl party.
I love your nicknames.
Well, I don't really like either one of them, so there's that.
Yeah.
But
there's always Kanye.
Hey, look, man. Orville Redenbacher is pretty typically my write-in candidate because I vote conscience. So
I don't know. I was kind of looking forward to the idea of our military getting new uniforms. Kanye outfitting our military with Azads.
I don't know. I liked him when his mouth was wired shut better. So there's that. But so, we have that interestingly going on. But, in particular down here, there's really not much going on. It's very sedate for, the greater, Miami Metroplex, kind of. There's really nothing going on. There's actually a huge lack of presidential campaign signs down here.
Mm-hmm.
We also have...
I don't recall seeing a lot of signs out this year either.
No,
come to
curious,
think of it.
Right? No, I mean, you kind of have to take if you take a 40,000 foot view of what's actually going on here, is there actually even a legitimate race this year? Because this doesn't really seem like there is, which makes me suspicious of other things. But we have our mayors and we have our, congressional races and everything else. And those signs are everywhere.
Yeah.
But there's nothing visceral. There's, in all reality, it's just another Thursday down here. There really isn't anything going on, but we're also in a portion of the country where we didn't really have any protests or any riots. Whether or not that has a relationship to this being a stand your ground state and having a metric fuck ton of concealed weapons permit carriers or not, I'm really not entirely sure. But we're not in a, for being in such a heavily is what I tried to say, because this is far from heavenly.
No, it's that big dip you got in your lip. That's what it is.
Hey,
checking up your enunciation, but that's all right. Whatever. So, Brian, let's go up to you guys up there in Moscow, and how are things going up there?
There's been a lot of local tension regarding masks. Trump even tweeted about it. We've got a local issue here with people getting arrested over disobeying the mask order. And that is, probably the single biggest issue that people are talking about locally, and how much authority the city council thinks it has over people's bodies. Mm-hmm. And so that is easily, I think, the number one issue that divides people around here.
And your police are actually enforcing that? They're actually arresting people?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 5 people were arrested. And they weren't arrested because of the masks. And this is maybe a distinction without a difference. Mm-hmm. They were arrested for failing to give ID to an officer when asked for it. And so because they couldn't ID them, they arrested them. I think from the outside, it appears that the police are not happy with the position they're being put in. Sure. But it is the more that I learn about it, the more complicated an issue and the more gray it becomes. And it's, I personally don't think anybody should be put in a cage over whether they wear a mask or not. But I'll just leave it that it's gray. Yep. And I do believe that there are lots of constitutional rights being violated. There's no asterisks next to freedom of assembly. And so, are
you seeing a lot of protests there, or not necessarily just protests, but political rallies, gatherings out in public in your area?
Not in particular. Idahoans are generally extremely courteous and well-behaved folks. And so most folks are just showing up to work and doing their jobs. Our unemployment rate is very low here right now because people never shut down and never quit going to work. And so it's a wonderful place to live in that regard. And people are generally pretty good at taking care of each other. Like, we don't have a homeless problem here because the churches get together and they swap nights on setting up a shelter for folks that need it. And that's very much the general, it's functionally libertarian in many ways. But this authoritarianism that's creeping in is bothering most folks in one way or another. Yeah. So I'd say that's easily the dominant topic on people's minds, and the candidates are stacked up accordingly. The Democrats here do not have Democrat Party listed anywhere in their campaign website or in their ads or anything. Like, you have to drill really far down to figure out how somebody is politically leaning. The way the Democrat candidates are positioning themselves is on quote unquote kitchen table issues like jobs and education, and which I think is a good strategy for them. I personally think that the Democrat Party its leadership is so reprehensible and its platform is so reprehensible right now that I've got a personal problem with anybody that still aligns themselves with that party. But, that's just me. That's by far the local deal. Moscow is also kind of the Berkeley of Idaho. It's the most liberal area. And so in certain neighborhoods, you'll see a ton of Biden signs, but it's it's 2 clustered areas that lean that way. And most people just want to be left the hell alone, is how I'd put it. People are well behaved here and they want the government not in their lives.
I think that probably goes for most areas in our country.
Yeah.
What about you, James, in your area? What are you seeing?
Pretty much about the same. I'd say, if you see political stuff, it's either local candidates or, honestly, there's a lot of Trump stuff. I've traveled around a little bit around the state in different places, and even in our university towns, which are very left-leaning, there's a lot of Trump stuff, people driving around with Trump flags, things like that. I don't think I've seen anything for Biden anywhere.
And you're in Montana, right?
Montana, yeah. As far as the hot issues, I don't know that anyone there's too amped up about any one thing. The legalization of marijuana is on the ballot this year, so that's the kind of the topic, I guess. But really, most people don't give a shit one way or the other. And then the mask thing, I think, is contentious for some of us, but That's about it. Nothing too crazy. Montana's usually pretty isolated off in its own world. It's hunting season right now. Nobody cares about the election. They're just going out trying to get a big elk.
That's kind of me. I haven't really been out in public much. I've been here in the office doing shows, editing, and then going out and prepping the hunting area there out on our farm. So I haven't been social distancing, but I've been distancing myself from just the general public, just to get away from all this nonsense. But this episode of Talking Lead is brought to you in part by Occam Defense. The guys at Occam love the AK, but didn't love burning their hands, getting cut by their pre-sharpened gun, or the lack of options for accessories. After spending a few years in the lab, they've recently released the ODS 1775, which brings the best of the AR family to the Kalashnikov's reliability. It's still an AK under the hood. AK mags, forged Polish AK parts, but with American aerospace manufacturing practices and ingenuity. Check them out at occamdefense.com or on Instagram at Occam Defense Solutions. What about in Texas there, Jared?
Well, it's interesting. Most people are just wanting to run their businesses. And the biggest impact I think that we've seen here locally, I'm in a fairly rural area. We're about 30 miles west of Waco, hour and a half from Austin. Austin's been a place where there's been a number of protests, and they shut down I-35 one night, or were attempting to, but Texas DPS moved in and kind of busted that up fairly quickly. Austin's been in the news for, of course, defunding their police department, but the governor stepped in and basically said, okay, Department of Public Safety will just take over, which they're already stretched pretty thin. But Austin's, it's the California of Texas, and it's an odd place. Dallas is a fairly blue county, or Tarrant County, and Houston also. But that's been the center of the majority of the protest, and they've been fairly minor. But here, most of us just want to be left alone, kind of echoing what you guys have said. One thing that I found frustrating, and I think it's occurring nationwide, is the impact that this has had on an already suffering education system. It's been so hard to get kids engaged and wanting to learn these days, and now this has just shoved that over the edge, and the level of apathy has skyrocketed in education. That's been really disheartening. So my wife is still in education, and of course we've got kids in school, and they're just lost. They don't, and the uncertainty is tough on the kids, but I think the majority of the people that I know that are business owners are really struggling with the uncertainty of what this election is how it's going to further impact business and the economy. And that's the big, I don't want to say fear, but that's the biggest concern, is the economy.
Yeah. And last episode, Brian had given a stat that was alarming. You remember that stat about the percentage of Democrats that were ready to go back to everyday life, normal life, return to work kind of thing? It was like really low.
I think it was
5.
I'm stretching, but I think it was like 3% for women and 5% for men.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a very telling statistic there, and mirrors what I've seen in the media, at least, sort of general impressions from those folks. But I'll admit to not having a lot of social contact with folks on the left these days.
Sure. Yeah.
You guys were talking about masks. I think the general opinion here is people don't want to wear them. And it's interesting. There's very few places in Texas that I've walked into without one on, where they say, "Oh, you can't come in." Most of the time, they just kind of, they want your business. And a few weeks ago, we were in Ohio, and you couldn't go anywhere. We walked into a place after training one night at 11 o'clock. We were the only ones that were in the place, and they would not serve us because we didn't have masks on.
Wow.
They just didn't want the business. They said, nope, you got to leave. Go.
No,
and
it's
they were
very,
fairly rude about it.
Yeah, it's a very consistent, observable pattern that in areas where you have high concentrations or predominant populations of Democrats, progressives, and liberals, you have a compulsion to be, or you're compelled to comply with statist rule. And my area is like that. That there's a direct social pressure that if you're not wearing your PPE, then there's something wrong with you, and they're kind of quick to remind you that, hey, you're being antisocial. Why don't you come and join our team unless you're an asshole? And that's very consistent with places like New York, Austin, California, Boston, Chicago, Atlanta,
Nashville,
right?
Yeah.
Where you find progressivism, where you find leftists, you will also find statism, and then you will find de facto authoritarianism.
100%. Yep. I had an interesting experience. I got away for a weekend with my kids and wife, which was wonderful. And we were driving just through a pretty large swath of Idaho. And we ended up in a little lake town. And we went into one store, and it's the only one I've seen in Idaho where it said, you will be ejected promptly or something like that if you're not wearing a mask. And I thought, oh, this will be interesting. And so I threw one on and walked in, and the lady working the counter was 75, 78 years old, somewhere in there. And I was like, oh, I am super happy to do voluntary business with this person who is at high risk, and wear a mask so that she can be protected. And I would hate to make that person sick. And so it was a real easy experience for me. And I think that mirrors most conservatives' feelings, maybe not all, but, if somebody is immunocompromised or in a high-risk age group, and it offers a 3% advantage or something to wear a mask, and I'm not sure that it conveys any advantage, but just out of decency for the elderly, I've got no personal problem wearing a mask. And, that person saying, in order to have us have a voluntary exchange, these are the conditions. I'm just wondering, does everybody else feel that way? Or
I think what you got, though, is a whole different topic, because requiring or forcing somebody to wear something is control. Asking somebody to wear something for, health reasons, human decency, whatever it is a whole different thing. So one is tyranny and the other is reasonable request.
And that is exactly and even a demand on the part of a private business owner saying, if you want to do business with me, these are the conditions. Like, you got to wear a shirt.
I'm not a fair weather liberty fan. Like, I believe liberty goes all ways. If you have a private business, it doesn't matter what you request of me to come in. That's your private business, and you get to decide that. Mm-hmm. And then I get to decide if I want to be a patron of that business. And so I don't judge any business like, I'll tell you right now, I worked ambulance for 14 years or 12 years or some shit. I don't know. We're required or asked in our policies to wear a mask on certain calls for years. Mm-hmm. No problem. The minute they came down and said, you will wear a mask when you go here, you go here. When you come in the building, you're going to do this, you can do that because the governor said so. Now I have a problem. So at that point, I said, okay, I'm never wearing a mask fucking again. And seriously. And they said, well, that puts us in a bad situation. Fine. Yep. I get it. You make the next move. But I'm not wearing one. Well, what if you went on this call? You know what? I'm not wearing one ever the fuck again. You ruined it. And that's where I draw the line, because I have to. Benjamin Franklin said that rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. I have an obligation to that now. Yep. And so I will not. But if I go into a business, and this happens, here and there, and somebody's like, hey, in our business, you have to wear one. Well, I respect your business, and I respect your liberty of that's your choice in your business. That's not the governor dictating to me. Governor doesn't get to dictate to me. He works for me. So that's where the line is drawn. Now, if Gam Gam down the road wants me to help her plow her snow or some shit, and she's an at-risk person, that's human decency, and I'm going to have a choice to be a good human being.
Right.
But you know, if I show up at her house and I go to put my mask on and the governor
you
looks
make a
over
good
my
point.
shoulder, put that on, I'm going to be like, now fuck you.
No, that's
You know?
a beautiful distillation of what I was trying to convey.
Yeah.
Voluntary association between grown-ups and kids or whatever, all about. You've said it nicely. If the government steps in and says, no, we own your body and what you do with it, both middle fingers go up.
Yeah.
Totally.
At that point, they do get a mask, and it's Guy Fawkes, and that's the only fucking one I'll ever put on my face. Kiss my ass.
You know, another interesting narrative that we're hearing now is the media telling us that maybe we shouldn't spend time with our family this holiday season. That when they start trying to brainwash people into thinking, oh no, we're going to call Thanksgiving off because it's too dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
I have a huge problem with that. And even, you know, I keep going back to young people. Because,
even Halloween. I mean, they've started with Halloween.
Yeah,
you know, Halloween has been
right.
canceled in a lot of places. You know.
Yep.
I'm actually in a place where Halloween is being strongly discouraged. However, we're doing Halloween, so there's that. And you
even wear masks on Halloween. So.
Well,
yeah,
no, I mean,
but those kind don't count.
We came up.
They provide just as much protection as this janky mask that they require to wear anyway.
That's right.
We came up with a plan in my neighborhood, and we're going to just roll with status quo. We're doing Halloween the same way we did Halloween the last bunch of years.
Awesome.
And if they don't like it, you can call the sheriff's department, and they can't. What are they going to do? Arrest a bunch of kids?
No, but they'll arrest the parents.
It really, you know, there's some terrifying footage. Well, terrifying's maybe too strong a word, but really troubling footage at the minimum coming out of New York City, where Bill de Blasio, he loves him some Black Lives Matter and he hates him some Jews. And he has the anti-Semitic stuff and the targeting of Jewish communities that he's done there is pretty horrific. But there was some video of they're having like I think there's some, well, it doesn't matter, but a small prayer group of, you know, it's 10 or 12 dudes. And there was a complaint to the police about parking on the street. And then the police looked up in the window and saw more than two men in a room. And they forced their way into the house. And I never saw what the outcome was, but I saw the video of the confrontation, and and where the cops repeat all this, that was their justification for entering the home. And I mean, I think if you're still living in New York City, you got to screw loose. But you know, just watching that kind of behavior is deeply troubling. And again, I try to bring it back to, like, you know, these people think they can control what you do with your body and where you put it, and can put you in a cage. They are putting people in cages over this kind of stuff.
Hold on a second. But it's my body, it's my choice. What happened to that? What happened? It's my body, it's my choice.
Very
doesn't fit their narrative for this scenario, so they get to change it. They get to change it.
Am I late? Am I too late? Because, like, I got the most bitchin' pussy hat for fucking Halloween ever.
Are you wearing it right now?
Oh, it's actually in my pants. But
keep your camera off then. Yeah. Please.
I'm walking, so you might be able to hear it. It's kind of like a wet mop.
Speaking of wet mops in your pants, what's going on in France?
Oh, France. France is being France, actually. You know, I had put a post up, and, you know, I had like 9 people chime in, said, yeah, but it's France. Like, they run from everything. Well, you know, that's cool. But tonight is when the curfew kicks in. So they have a mass evacuation happening. And I'm actually really curious to see who are the Parisians that are actually evacuating. because this is also the week that they've had 3 beheadings by the, let me use Paul's words. Hold on. Yeah, fuck, man. What does Paul call it? He has Paul
Markle.
Mm-hmm.
Aloha snack bar, not that.
No, not that. Emissaries of Peace or some shit. But anyways, they've had 3 beheadings, and French Prime Minister, or maybe it was the mayor of Paris. I can't remember which one it was. I just skimmed it, unfortunately. But he had said that France has fallen to the Muslim refugees. And the last time that happened, right, other things happened. But apparently the church isn't really interested in doing what they did the last time France fell to the Moors. But France is in really rough shape, man. Like more than usual. And I would argue that it's probably in worse occupation than it was under the Reich, because the Reich didn't try to replace the population. They just said, hey, look, be cool. If you're a Jew, you're going to die. If you're a Catholic, you're going to die. Right? That was obviously heinous. But they said to everybody else, hey, look, we're just going to borrow your country. And if we win, you'll become Germans. And they were like, well, that sucks, but it's better than being dead. And we see what you're doing in Poland. So, you want to croque monsieur or what? And
so there were actual beheadings. And if you try to find a story on it and you look at all the headlines, it says knife attack.
Yeah.
3 killed in terrorist knife attack.
Well, technically, that's true, right?
That's technically true, right? If you use Newspeak and all this, reread, 1984 anytime you want, because it's kind of the blueprint for what's happening right now globally. It's true. It is factual. There was a knife attack. A knife was used. He didn't use a fucking bulldozer or a lightsaber. He used a knife, right?
Lightsaber, yeah.
And this is all in just response to, another, I believe it was a teacher who was beheaded in the middle of the street, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember reading that story.
Right? And then the next 2 were, I believe, inside of a church. And as a result of that, they've the recent edict that came by this afternoon was that, all right, so we understand that some people are coming and doing some things, reference, right? And it's happening in churches. So instead of going after the people that are doing the things,
they're going to shut down churches.
We're not going to allow you to go to your church and pray to your God. Okay.
So let me read this. Let me read this real quick. So, and this is how they're spinning this in the media. And this is it looks like CNN, and it was is it NICE? Is that Nice or just Nice? Is it pronounced Nice?
Nice.
It's
man.
Nice.
It's Nice.
Okay.
Beautiful there.
So one of the victims, a 60-year-old woman, was found at the entrance of the church with a deep cut to her throat.
It wasn't a deep cut; it was a through and through, like all the way around.
Right, but this is how they're wording
like
it.
Christmas ham.
Yeah,
Christmas ham.
French anti-terror prosecutor Jean-François Ricard said in a press conference, a 55-year-old man, the church's something with the church, also died from a fatal wound to his throat.
Right, because
the third casualty, a 44-year-old woman, was stabbed several times before she fled the church. She died at a nearby restaurant.
Right.
So, I mean, what did they gain by not actually saying that these people were decapitated and beheaded? They did the teacher.
I'll tell you what France doesn't get is they don't get Lebanon or Syria. Right, because if they start firing it up and saying, hey, hold on a second, we let you all motherfuckers in here. We thought you were going to become French and just like, participate in our, democratic.
Cheese and wine.
Right, and in fact, they just said, yeah, it's a little cold here, but like you're going to give me an apartment, you're going to give me a stipend, right? My kids become French. and we don't have to assimilate. So how about we just perform civilization jihad, and we'll breed you out of fucking existence? So that's been happening. The French are like, hey, we don't really know what to do about this, but we're a bunch of globalist shitbags, and if we push back against the UN about the refugee program, they're gonna squeeze us. So they would rather be on their knees than have to stand tall to the UN and say, hey, look, this refugee thing just isn't really working out, right? And unfortunately, there's just entirely too many of them. And again, the last time there were too many of them, there were a bunch of dudes really super loyal to God on horses, and they had to push them out by sword.
With shields and swords.
Keith likes everything about the great outdoors. He's a lot like us. Whether we're bow hunting in the backcountry or plinking in the backyard, we want to enjoy each experience to the fullest. Kel-Tec's .22 caliber P17 is Heath's go-to pistol for a good time, on the range, on the trail, and anywhere in between. Weighing in at only 14 ounces with a full magazine, its compact size makes it easy to conceal or tuck away in a small pack, pocket, or space. It comes out of the box ready with a fiber optic front sight, a threaded barrel, a Picatinny rail, and a price point for any budget. With 3 16-round magazines, it's ready for hours of pure unadulterated enjoyment. It's easy, it's affordable, it's accurate, and it's a damn sweet marvel of plinking innovation. The Kel-Tec P17. It's more bang for less buck.
They put the city on high alert, maximum alert, whatever. They've imposed a curfew, and you had made a post on one of your social medias showing people like mass exiting, evacuating that area.
They actually. It's actually. It's a great thing to study if you really want to pay attention to it. The amount of traffic exiting Paris is absurd because, well, where are they going to go? Right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, where are all these people going?
Where are they going? Right? And if Paris is going to be under a lockdown with a curfew, and these people are evacuating, functionally becoming themselves refugees, and if you want to put it into really interesting terms, are these people bugging out?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what's their plan? And I think that when we wake up tomorrow morning, there'll be some interesting footage of people roadside without a place to go. And if these people don't have the ability to go somewhere else, you're going to wind up with tent cities. In France, being at the latitude that it is coming up on some snow.
Not a good time of year to be homeless in Paris.
It's never a good time to be homeless.
Yeah.
It's a really bad time to be homeless when it's winter and and the city that you live in is under siege.
So how can we go ahead?
And it's even a little trickier than that in that Nice is 600 miles from Paris. It's almost to Italy. And
it's on the coast.
And that's not the first. Yeah, it's right. It's apparently a gorgeous place. I haven't been there, but I've heard of other attacks. I think in Marseille as well. And so these areas that were typically like the quiet or touristy or nice parts, they're seeing it too. So running from Paris, that's. I don't know that you're getting better. It's not like it's just an inner city urban issue that we're talking about here.
It's absolutely not. And when you have, the regular protests that have been happening in Paris all along, that just that was pretty effectively shut down by COVID, right? There's actually, side note, there's actually a lot of really big protests that have been happening in reasonably democratic nations that were going on and on and on and on. And the host nations were seemingly incapable of suppressing these uprisings until, drum roll, COVID. COVID had an absolute impact on a number of very large, ongoing, protracted protests.
As in it slowed the roll.
No, it actually dead stop.
Just completely stopped it.
Dead stop.
It's interesting how the opposite has happened here.
We're
The
ornery.
protests, they're disregarding COVID. You don't hear about those being super spreader events.
No.
Yet any political rally
Or church gathering.
Or church gathering.
Or sports gathering.
It's absurd.
It's a cultural and sociological phenomenon
Or holiday gathering.
that Americans are going to respond oppositely to countries that are slightly more, I don't know, socialist.
Yeah, in Israel, I learned recently it's the conservative end of the spectrum that's pro-mask and the liberal side that's anti-mask. So it doesn't correlate super well to political preference in an interesting way. Jay, do you have any insight on that?
Not really, but the one thing that you do have to take into consideration is that American liberalism is not the same as international liberalism.
Sure.
Right? That's like American anarchists are not the same as European anarchists. Like functionally and ideologically, they're like polar opposites. So
Interesting.
Yeah. The thing that's been most striking to me, and not to change topics on people, but I'd be interested in people's thoughts on what I view as a soft coup going on right now in terms of the available information to the American public about what's going on, and the complete censorship. And there's the social media censorship that seems to be in lockstep with mainstream media. And the best example, of course, is the leaked Hunter Biden stuff and UPS losing Tucker Carlson's original source material, which I think was not a smart idea to not hand carry around. But do you guys have an opinion on what's going on there and treat it with the same?
They just had those hearings with Google, Facebook, and that other social media.
Twitter. Yeah, and Twitter.
About the Section 230 and basically what they've been doing or what they, suspect them of doing. And, I think that kind of plays into what you were getting at too there, Brian.
Well, it's bigger than that, because you've got NPR saying that they won't even report on it because it's a waste of their time. You've got 60 Minutes saying that they wouldn't talk about it because it couldn't be verified, even though the campaign has never denied the veracity of any of the stuff. And the computer store owner where this laptop came from, said that Hunter Biden's lawyer called to get the laptop back. And I'm fairly certain that everybody listening to this has seen some of it. But basically, far as I can tell, Biden is implicated pretty strongly between that and the testimony from this guy Bobolinsky in definite corruption issues that would disqualify any Republican candidate in a heartbeat. It's stuff that we all know goes on, but it's pretty bald-faced, and
there's a smoking gun in this case, and they're not willing to expose it.
Well, I think part of the problem is, and our perspective sometimes is clouded by the people that we surround ourselves with, and we think that everyone should be appalled at the censorship, and we want to know the facts, so we want to know the truth. But unfortunately, it seems that the majority of Americans could really care less. I know we're seeing record turnout in voters this year, but specifically in the younger demographics, people don't understand that there's an issue with censorship going on. Or, like a number of very close friends that I have that I've known my entire life, they just shrug their shoulders and like, there's nothing we can do about it anyway. And they go on about their lives and they don't seem to care. And I think that's the real battle we're fighting, is apathy.
All day.
What are your thoughts on it, James?
I think it's, my thoughts are probably controversial, but I think it's education based.
Absolutely.
I think it's education based. I think
Keep going.
I think that people have been indoctrinated in this country for the last 40 years through the school systems. People have no fucking clue what they should care about, what they just don't have a clue, man. I mean, you can go to any kid in this country right now under the age of 18 and ask them who Benjamin Franklin is, and at best you'll get a response that has something to do with a kite.
Try under the age of 30.
These people have no idea about anything so why should they? I mean, you can't fault them for not knowing what they should care about. They don't have a foundation to even build off of. So
they can't critically think.
To me, it's all about. It starts in the school system and parents. I mean, parenting sucks too, but that started back when I was a kid. Parents would spank their kids in public, and holy shit, they get arrested and stuff. I mean, it became a huge thing. You remember that, like in the probably about 95, 96 time frame. That was the hot topic of the day for months and months in the media. It was all about taking spankings away, for crying out loud. So you take indoctrination in the schools and you couple it with shit dick parenting, and what do you got? You got a bunch of kids that are now my age, and they're raising kids that are even worse than them. What do you expect?
It's interesting.
Really, that's my thought.
Not to interrupt, but I was sitting at this school sporting event tonight, looking at the distancing around the gym, and this is a huge 6A, mega 6A school, huge gym where they were playing volleyball, and we can't get our kids to even interact with people anymore and get away from their phones. But now, looking around the gym, kids aren't even speaking to each other because the school districts make them socially distance and all this. And I had that exact same thought. This is just furthering the indoctrination because these kids don't know any different. They're doing what they're told, and none of them, whether they're 14 or 21, 22, no one knows how to critically think about this. And you're exactly right. You nailed it on the head. The reason the American public is buying all this is because they don't have any knowledge, foundation, basis of basic science. Not to go back to the science stuff, but that's what we're dealing with this.
No, science
crap.
is the reason of everything, though.
Sure,
there's God and science, and you basically answer everything with those two, those two things. So,
but no one thinks. No one critically thinks.
No one thinks. And
James nailed it.
No, and
I think it's worse than that too. Like you look at this year alone, right? We tied COVID back into this, but look at society, right? You walk around, we got a visual representation this year, a visual representation of what the 3% is. People have talked this 3%er thing for how many years, and I'm a 3%er. They're wearing these little patches and stupid shirts and shit. I'm a 3%er. Yeah, okay. Well, this year their bluff was called. All these guys are running around with their mask on, playing the game. 3%er my ass. This is a visual representation of who really would throw the tea in the harbor, or who would stand in the shadows and come out at the end and pretend that they were throwing the tea in the harbor because the guys that threw the tea in fucking won, called the bluff, and the Brits stood down. Right? This is just a visual representation this year of who's really what. I think it's shocking for people to really look at it and see and be like, okay, wow, maybe the 3% is a lot smaller than we thought it is, but it's no different. This is no different than, any era in history. You look at the shit that went on in the Renaissance, or the stuff that went on, any point. You can go back, thousands of years, or you can look at, just 60 years ago. I think it's exactly the same. It's just so blatantly obvious to those of us that can think for ourselves. We're stunned because it's happened so quickly, but here we are. I don't know. That's my rant.
So I know that Jay's short on time here, so I want to make sure that we get this in before we go. So I just kind of want to get predictions because I think this is be fun before the elections, and then we're all gonna get back together after the election and see how accurate the predictions are. So as far as how the election's going to go and how the country's going to react if it goes one way or the other, I want your predictions on that. So. Who wants to kick that off?
Jay needs to go first. I think he's got a timetable.
Yeah. So I'm like a little jaded and stuff. So I actually don't have I could go either way, quite honestly. We've had all the predictive programming and we've had all the soft disclosure over the last 7 or 8 months that no matter who wins, the election is going to be contested.
Yes.
We know this.
Yeah.
We know that already. We already know that there's voter fraud. We already know because there was last time and there was the time before that. And this time there's all kinds of other stuff that's going on that's going to find itself, materialize that'll sure as shit wind up on the news, whether it's true or not. I don't think it functionally matters who wins. I think that there's a high potential for a shit show in 12 or 15 states. How that's responded to will entirely depend upon who's actually pulling the strings and how committed they are for their actual win. I think we're in solid false flag territory, and I think that if the play is being run for a score to nail America, we're going to see it soon. So I don't think it really does matter who wins, because ultimately the citizens are going to lose. How that actually plays out, I'm really not sure. But then again, this is the flip side of my coin, is that I don't think people really give a shit one way or another. And I think that there's reason to believe that Trump's going to drive this thing into the end zone with the electorals. Biden will win the popular. It'll go to the Supreme Court and it'll lose. There'll be a shit show, and then it'll go away. Because if Trump wins, he can ring the bell on the Insurrection Act and basically just start black bagging people and throwing them in a military tribunal for all these acts of treason that have been happening, forever. But the big ones recently. So
what if Biden wins?
Biden wins is actually Harris winning, which is actually the globalists winning, which is actually China winning. If that happens, my fingers are crossed that there's some people with some deep pockets and long reach that can actually do something about it the old way. And then we have some really big problems, right? Because we already have an active destabilization program that's running on our country right now. So asking for that is asking for war. But sometimes when you get an infection that's really bad, you've got to cut out a bunch of tissue to be able to save the rest. And I think that we're firmly in that position. And it's a shit show. This is an absolute shit show. There is nothing organic about this. This is entirely fabricated. And everything that's been happening up to this point has been done on purpose. That's all. That's what I have to say about that, without being massively conspiratorial. But
I want to do a conspiracy show too, and we'll do that one day. But we're not going to do it today. But so what I'm hearing is you think Trump's going to win.
I think that there's a really decent chance that he's going to win.
Okay.
Right? I think there's a really decent chance that he's going to win. I also think that there may be some plays in motion to get in the way of that.
Okay. Let's hear what James has to say.
Trump's going to win by a massive landslide in the electoral. Republicans will keep the Senate. I got a pretty good feeling they'll take the House. If they don't, they just wasted 8 years for no reason whatsoever, because all they got done was executive orders. And then let's see, what's the other thing? And then there'll be riots for 6-8 weeks in all the major cities. They'll cry, they'll throw their tantrums, they'll eventually die down, and they'll go back to coming up with different ways to create chaos for 4 years. In the end, though, I look at the big picture. I think that the presidential election is actually probably one of the more meaningless ones that we've had of the more recent ones. Presidential elections are, presidents don't make laws. They sign them in or they veto them out. That's what they do. And you need both sides to get it done when you're this divided. So without the House and the Senate, it doesn't matter. So I really think the Republicans keep in the Senate no matter what. So even if Biden and Harris take the presidential spot, who cares? What matters is president's seat justices. And there's at best one opportunity in the next 4 years. And that's a lefty justice that's 87 years old. So there's no power shift in the Supreme Court. It's just one position gets younger if that were the case. So I really don't think that the stakes are that high in this particular presidential election, other than the fact that if the Trump team wants to get shit finalized permanently, they need the House and Senate. And I don't know, the House is going to be interesting.
And what do you think about the court stacking if Biden?
I think it's a total wet dream that'll never happen. I mean, look, FDR couldn't get it done. These people come up with these crazy ideas. They spill it all over the media, and they get people to rally behind it. Yeah. It's all a marketing ploy. But at the end of the day, if you want to alter the Constitution, there's a process. That process involves all the states. It involves both the House, the Senate, the presidential. I mean, there's a whole process, and you can't just go, "Oh, I got an idea. We're going to change the Constitution today, and we're going to do this." And just because AOC wants it done, it's done. It doesn't work that way. And that's why they hate us. That's why they hate the Constitution. That's why they constantly condition us through the media by calling our country a democracy. We're not a democracy, but they brainwash us with these buzzwords, right? And they condition us to believe that we're something we're not, so that when we find out we're not, we're mad about it. And then we try to rally and we want to make changes. No, that pesky Constitution's in the way, and that pesky Second Amendment's in the way. It is what it is. And, thank fuck our founding fathers had their brains together. So.
And that goes back to your point of lack of education and indoctrination within the school system for the last, 50 years.
Yep.
They think that they can just snow the public by using their media machine and continuing to scream that democracy, and it doesn't work that way.
And I take it a step further. I think the media machine is they. They are using the media machine. I think the media machine is they. They're the ones.
There you go, Marty.
Marionettes of the puppet show.
That's what I said. That's what
they are. Yeah. That's they.
They. So what about you, Jared? Since you were on it there, what's your prediction?
Oh man, I really feel like Trump's going to win, and I think that's going to spell disaster for the major metropolitan areas for the near future. And my fear, if that happens, well, I don't know if it's a fear. I think my concern is that will be a flashpoint in itself, because those that have been tearing down and burning these cities are going to continue to do it on a larger scale, and then business owners and homeowners are going to start suffering, and they're going to start fighting back, and that's going to be, they're going to start fighting back more.
Well, that's my prediction too. Is like that's we're going to say enough's enough. You had your tantrum. I'm spanking you, and I'm sending you to bed now.
Yes, and that's going to escalate things even more, and no one really knows what the ramifications of that are, and that really needs to happen. And I hate to say that, because people are going to suffer. People are suffering now. Biden, a win, in my opinion, it would be in the long term, a bit inconsequential, because I think local representation would come into play even more so, just like the large overreach at the state level that was attempted in Virginia, where the people and the sheriffs stood up and said, no, it's not happening. We're not enforcing it, not on my watch. And I think you would see more of that if Biden-Harris ticket were to prevail. I think that would drive people closer to liberty, and it might calm things initially, but I really feel like Trump's going to win.
Brian.
You know, I think it's probably, I would say, too close to call. I have a gut feeling that absent massive voter fraud and some things, unknown unknowns, which 2020 has been the king of unknown unknowns, and so very hard for me to see what's actually, there's the ballots being cast, and then there's the ballots that get recorded. And, there's Project Veritas just released an expose on one lady that had tampered with 7,000 ballots, and Trump won by 80,000 ballots. And that was just one lady. So we're talking about razor thin margins here. And I think the Senate, my guess would be that we hold the, or not we, but the Republicans hold the Senate. And, I got a decent feeling about Trump winning, even with all the malfeasance. But the media, I haven't, back in July, I started to think that there's no way with the media manipulation going on that this is a free and fair election. And now I very strongly feel that way, that the level of malfeasance on the part of the elites, and I can finally give you your they, Marty. I think there's a decent boogeyman in the tech giants and mainstream media. I think they've outed themselves enough now to where you can call them a they. And I don't.
I agree.
When you control information, you really do control thought, and there hasn't been a single thing that's fair about the debates. Not that many people made up their minds on them, but it's just so catastrophic in its lack of clarity and being reasonably down the middle that it's just too hard for me to see what's going on, and I don't believe any of the polls for a minute. And so, it's just a lot of manipulation. And so, if you put a gun to my head, I'd say Trump, but I don't know.
Yeah. I think legitimately, if it's legitimate, Trump wins. Otherwise, again, malfeasance, tampering, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen, but, based on, all the what ifs and could haves that are going to be put into play.
When the media and the left talk about voter intimidation, I think the media, are absolutely guilty of that in the polling, because their goal of sharing these so-called polls is to make people think, oh, well, I was going to go vote, but if Biden's that far ahead, or, my vote's not going to make a difference. It's not going to count, so I'm going to stay home.
No, they're absolutely complicit in social manipulation in the same capacity that Twitter and Facebook and Google are. It's the same thing done in a couple different ways. No. And I think you're totally on point there.
Now, one interesting thing, I'm always looking for people that are smart that disagree with me, just to check myself on whether I'm being reasonable or not. And there's this guy Dan Carlin, who's he doesn't call himself a historian, but everybody else does. He does hardcore history, and he has a separate podcast called Common Sense, and he's an old school talk radio guy. and he's been very quiet during the Trump presidency because he said he doesn't understand what's going on anymore. And
Right.
he leans pretty libertarian, but he's also pretty far left as well. But I think he's a decent, reasonable person. And he put out a podcast recently, and with a lot of reason behind it, painted a completely opposite picture from the one that I have, that Trump is the next Hitler and that kind of thing. And the way in which he presents it is not crazy. And I completely disagree with what he's saying, but the history of that man, you know, he has a long track record of being a down the middle, reasonable kind of guy. And he is praying for a Biden win and sees the acts of the current administration as being just horrific. And so I point that out just, you know, that there are counterpoints out there from, just that there are reasonable people on the other side of this thing. And I sure like being in the same country as Dan Carlin, you know, even though I vehemently disagree with him. And it's hard to tease out where the middle really is anymore. You know, the right is moving left and the left is moving left. And so it's hard to find a baseline. But I think it's fair to say that most people are scratching their heads. Another interesting opinion, if you guys are interested in listening to another one, is Eric Weinstein. His podcast is The Portal, and he just did an interview with Douglas Murray. And he does a monologue before that on what we're going into. And Weinstein's another lefty, but he spends almost all the time talking about the grave existential threat that social media and mainstream media poses to our country. And he has a brilliant analysis of the problem. And so, you know, there's a fellow traveler who might not be politically, you know, and I don't think he's a gun guy, that's for sure. But he cares about liberty and about the free exchange of ideas. And I think that's his chief issue, is the massive compromise that's happened to our free exchange of ideas.
The FaKtory family has been producing high-quality ammunition since 1876. In 2020, FaKtory's launching a full line of premium products, everything from self and home defense to the long-range categories. The FaKtory Blue Guardian line will feature specially tuned products specifically for home and self-defense, featuring lead-free technology and the only NATO-certified zero-pollution primer in the world. FaKtory's a proud sponsor of the Talking Lead podcast and the Leadhead Brigade. FaKtory trains, FaKtory protects.
You know, we always encourage our listeners to listen to both sides, you know, especially the ones that you don't agree with, because that's going to help educate you more on what you need to be battling against and what's coming your way. I think Jay mentioned that two episodes ago.
I'm constantly harping on that, man.
Yeah.
I pay attention. I actively pursue contrarian information. I'm not interested in reading shit that I agree with.
Yeah.
Just, I don't need to. I do my own thinking, gather my own data, make my own conclusions. I just want to be paying attention to the shit that's not right in front of me.
Yep.
Very well said. So we've got our predictions in. I'm going to post this, like I said, pre-election, so our listeners can hopefully catch this before the election, and then we're all going to come together again, and we'll do a post show and kind of see what's going on, what's happening. You know, if the power grid's still up, then
It'll be up.
Which that brings me to an upcoming guest that I've got that you leadheads aren't going to want to miss out on. His name is Kyle Mills, and he is an author of over 20 novels. He took over the Vince Flynn novels of Mitch Rapp. You guys familiar with Mitch Rapp?
I am a giant Mitch Rapp fan and Kyle Mills fan. Yeah, he's done an outstanding job at continuing Vince's voice.
Yeah, he's done like the last 6 or 7 Mitch Rapp series. They did a movie last year before last, of the first Mitch Rapp book.
Yeah,
American Assassin.
A couple times, but it's not a pimple on the ass of the books. It's great.
Yeah.
It's just not a pimple on the ass of the books.
It was enough to get me interested enough to want to get Kyle Mills on to start talking about the book. So we've got Kyle Mills coming up, and the new Mitch Rapp book is about, what if the power grid, our power grid get hit and we lose all power. It's going to be like a million times worse than Corona.
It's been being tickled a lot lately.
Yeah, and he talks about that. So he's done a lot of research on it. So he's got a lot of good insight.
Yeah, there's all kinds of scary shit going on that you're probably better off not knowing about. I wish I didn't know.
But yeah, that's coming up, so you leadheads don't want to miss that. And then, of course, coming up next year in February, we've got an awesome course with 212 training group here in Nashville at Royal Range. Yeah. So, Jared,
really looking forward to that.
Talk about our course we got.
Man, super excited to be going to Royal Range, coming to Nashville to see you. We're always just looking for opportunities to share information, share knowledge, and get people behind the AK and get people behind, trigger time period. Obviously, this is something that is kind of coming to the forefront of people's thought process more and more. A lot of new gun owners out there, a lot of new AK owners out there, and we're pumped about sharing knowledge. And the human brain is just like a computer, and if it ever has to carry out a process that it hasn't done very much, it's gonna run a little slow. And that's our goal, is to just get people behind the gun, get people familiar with it, get people understanding the mechanics, the manipulations. Even though we're going to be at an indoor range, you can learn a tremendous amount about the ballistics of the gun also. So we're super excited about that. We're going to have some great stuff to give away, like a couple of def lights maybe. Yeah. I may be toting some HSP micro chest rigs along with me.
Whoopsie daisy.
So those are a hot item here lately. So, man, we're going to have a great time, and just super pumped about sharing the range with you, Marty, and Brian's going to be there also. Brian, what do you got cooking?
Yeah, I'll be there to help out where I can and be bringing some demo rifles with me, and we may have some select fire fun for the students, and not many people have gotten to shoot a full auto 1775, but it's a lot of fun, and we may be doing a raffle as well. I can't guarantee that yet, but we'll certainly have a bunch of prizes to give away throughout the class, and some swag and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so everybody's working really hard to make this a great event for you lead heads, and we've already got people signing up, and had a guy down here and just south of me in Killeen, Texas, contact me today. I think he's going to fly up, so We're super excited.
Very good. And FaKtory 47 is going to be a part of this also with our new line of Talking Lead AK Corner swag. Everyone who registers is going to get a T-shirt. So that's going to be an awesome little bonus there too. We're going to provide some food for our students.
Absolutely.
And we're doing this all at a 5-star range, Royal Range USA there in Nashville. And Art and the gang there are doing an awesome job working with us, putting this together too. But yeah, we're going to have giveaways for our students. There's only 20 slots available, and those are going to fill up quick. So you want to go to 212's website, give that.
Yep, 212traininggroup.com, or you can also get their 212 Firearms Training. Both take you to the same place, 2021 training calendar, and you'll find it there. So just jump in.
Yeah, it's going to be well worth the money. I mean, the training alone is enough to sign up for the class, but all the extras that we're going to have there I like to take care of my listeners, like to take care of my lead heads when I've got Talking Lead on one of those training courses. We take care of you. You can ask some of our past students. So, yeah, it's going to be a good time, and the dates are?
February 20th and 21st. Going to be a Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, so go ahead, sign up now. If you don't have your ammo, Royal Range USA has ammo. You can contact them, and they will keep the ammo there for you, save it for you. It'll be waiting for you when you show up to class. You don't have to worry about traveling with it or whether you're going to be able to get the ammo or not. I think by February, I don't know. I don't think the ammo shortage is going to be any different.
It's not.
I doubt it.
It's not.
Yeah, probably be worse. So the sooner you jump on that, the better.
Absolutely.
So there you go, guys. Any last thoughts? Any parting thoughts before we sign off?
Jay and I were talking about this earlier, and real good time if you live in a nasty metropolitan area. Like if you're in Seattle, really good time to take a little vacation out of town. And I have family members that live in sketchy areas for that. And yeah, we have got, generally an axiom in training that don't go to stupid places at stupid times with stupid people, and you'll probably be okay. And, major metropolitan areas have a potential for, what's that, sorry?
They have a high threat probability right now.
There you go.
And it's interesting you say that, because there's a relatively small town about 70 miles west of Fort Worth, Texas, and they have an unusually long runway. And
what's on it right now?
I believe it was a G5 from somewhere in New York.
Yeah.
That somebody basically expressed they were getting out of town for a little while.
Yeah.
Now, not all of us we can't all hop on one of those and get out of town, but
No, but I can tell you that there is a gigantic exodus from the tri-state area that's been percolating and has been increasing over the last couple days.
So somebody's thinking about it.
I would say that there are probably actionable intel packages that have been circulated amongst certain people that have, said, hey,
certain circles.
Yeah, certain circles have been advised. I got some information today that there's, it's not like a big deal. It's not like secret squirrel shit, but there's domestic private security contracts that are being filled right now just to work at the high rises, and it could get a little sporty in some places, so they're allocating some funds to something more than mall cops at some of these places, which is, it's a reasonable expectation. It's, it's a, logical process.
Given the past actions, yeah.
Well, yeah, because, Manhattan's largely boarded up still in, a lot of places. So, whatever. But
yeah,
and,
if you're in one of those high risk, high threat areas, like Brian said, it'd be a good time to go visit some relatives in not so threatened area before the mass exodus happens and you can't get out.
Well, a couple bridges and a couple tunnels can be shut down really fast. Mm-hmm. So, being on Manhattan's probably not a great idea unless you plan on staying.
Yep. Very good. All right, Leadhead. So that does it for this episode of the Talking Lead podcast. We're going to be back with this crew post-election, and who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? Hopefully, we'll be back.
We'll be back. We'll be fine. We're American
here.
But
right.
In the meantime, we've got several other episodes coming out between now and then that you're not going to want to miss, especially the one with Kyle Mills. It was really good, so you guys aren't going to want to miss that one. So, as always, Leadheads, keep your loved ones close.
And your firearms closer.
And your powder dry.
Any favorite submission?
This is James with FaKtory 47, reminding you to live free, but if you must die, die with your boots on.
Outtakes, outtakes, outtakes.
Come up with some fucking
Dude,
tagline.
I didn't have one.
Let's think for a second here.
I'm James motherfucking Unlimited.
Worldwide, bitch.
Why just put me on the spot like this?
You can catch me on World Star Hip Hop.
You were on an episode. You know how this rolls.
Dude, I'm still new.
Newbie.
Prestige Worldwide, FaKtory 47. Get some.
My name's James, and I'm low-key famous.
Low-key famous.
Oh man, what did I say last time? Just cut the one from last time and paste it in there.
No, you got to do a new one. You got to do a new one.
That's how we do every time?
Not every time, but come on.
Oh, what did I say last time?
And your Gucci collectible AK shit closer.
I don't know, man.
Did you
I'm
do
James Consigliere of Everything Fucking Great.
any famous submission?
I got with boots on.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
That's the one, right?
Yep, do that.
All right. Live free, but if you must die, die with your boots on.
How about with some fucking conviction?
That was
sir?
some.
Fuck you. Get up in it.
All right. Well,
Yeah,
Thank you,
Come on,
Brian.
Montana.
Thank you, Brian.
Come on, Montana.
Come on. Do
Montana.
this.
Smack him around.
Dude, you're a big guy. You can't be hitting me like that. All right. This is James with FaKtory 47, reminding you to live free, but if you must die, die with your boots on. Is that better?
Yeah, it sounds
Yeah,
like
that was better.
NPR, man. That was great.
But I bet Marty.
But he can cut that part.
Probably.
Already cut that part. Put your little ticker thingy.
I'm
Whatever you do.
an editing genius, but I like the way you said who you are and who you're with too. That was a nice
Right?
touch.
I brought it because I got my shoulder popped like 6 times.